Can you hear me now?
Now, now it's like that Verizon ad.
Awesome. How you doing?
Hey, Chuck, thanks for joining us.
Mark, thanks for the invite. Hope all is well up in Boston.
Yeah, we're hanging in there pretty good. For those that don't know who you are, can you just give a quick introduction and your team and where you're located?
Sure. My name is Chuck Luciano. My team is South Florida Luxury Advisors. We're in the South Florida market, which is basically Palm Beach County, Broward County, from West Palm Beach to Fort Lauderdale. So we help people buy and sell homes, obviously, whether they be condos or single family residences.
Awesome.
For me, the Boston area is where the real people are. I'm a Tampa Bay Patriots fan too. We call them the Tampa Bay Patriots now.
You gotta keep him out of the parks, and
it's crazy.
I don't know what's happening down there. So what have we been seeing? We've seen a lot in Florida with the beaches in Jacksonville, I think it was.
Yeah.
That's just, do they do it county by county or town by town, or how do they have jurisdiction? Because we noticed that there were some issues in Jacksonville and they had to shut it back down, and I don't know.
Yeah, county by county. North Florida, which is Jacksonville, really wasn't hit that bad. So I guess local government decided to open the beaches. I don't know that they had any issues with it. I know California had problems of opening and then closing again, but
yeah,
the governor here has done a very good job. The statistics really aren't that bad, nothing compared to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're still closing properties. What I had to, my biggest concern is my pipeline. I'm primarily a listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say probably 70% listings, 30% buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been difficult to try to get new listings during this time because no one really wants you in their house
Mm-hmm.
unless there's some situation. So what I've done is I've brought a lot of my closings that were in the May-June timeframe and tried to bring them in to April for some selfish reasons. In many cases, the buyers didn't know if they were going to still have a job.
Sure.
So banks have been really doing employment checks at the closing table. Literally, I had a closing on Wednesday. They checked with their employer at 9 a.m. Our closing was at 10. So I've arranged some leasebacks with some sellers where, they weren't really keen on closing earlier because they didn't have a place to go. So we did the closing earlier. They got their money. They stayed in the house and they, paid the buyer rent until, the scheduled closing date.
Right.
So it's been different, but, we've been adjusting. I've been in the business 21 years. So the last crisis I can relate to was the bank foreclosure crisis in, some 15 years ago.
Yep.
And that was truly a housing crisis. All of my clients ask me, so what do you think it's going to be like once, we're back to some semi-normal? And the real honest answer is, I don't know.
Yep.
Nobody knows. I've got some buyers that in a normal environment would be making offers on properties, and they're reluctant to do so now because they're betting on the market going down when we get back to normal. So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's hard to know because there has been I would think, minimal transactions during this, 8-week time period. So when normally you would be able to rely on statistics and you might see a trend, that trend hasn't really shown its head yet. So I think people are going to be very interested for the first 30 to 45 days or 30 to 60 days to know which way it's going. Does it stabilize? Is it dropped? Is it the same? Is it rising? Whatever. And I'm sure it'll bump along for a while, but it's hard to know right now. I think the sentiment up here is there's got to be some implied discount right now, but the fundamentals going into this were pretty strong. Obviously, employment's going to make a huge difference. People losing, potential down payments, having to dip into savings, that will have an effect. We're a primarily a listings group as well. We're probably 70% listings, 30% buyers. Do you guys have our season up here, I'm sure it's different because of the temperatures and everything, but generally for the last 3 or 4 years, the spring market has been, somewhere in January, February, it starts, depending on the snowfall. It goes pretty much until July 4th. Then it goes a little dormant in the summer months. It picks up for a medium fall between, just after Labor Day up until about Thanksgiving. And then we start collecting listings again and getting prepared for the spring again. So whereas we had a lot of listings that were set up to come out over the last 30 days, we've had to scramble and say, what should we do? And we're basically getting them organized, getting them prepped, getting the marketing done so that we can hit the market right around now. We just started trickling on a few properties because I think the mindset for us was once we start to see a little bit of decline of the cases, once we see people a little more confident coming off the peak, because I think we had our peak over the last couple of weeks and maybe still be slightly in it. Maybe people will free up themselves to be able to come out a little bit more. They'll be more likely to loosen up their wallet and start to get excited about property again. But what is your season down there for selling listings?
Yeah, we have 2 seasons. We have the snowbird season, whereby, people from the Northeast come down, which basically goes from, let's call it Thanksgiving to Easter. So November 1 to April 15. That's season on the coast. The condominium market, the beachfront market. So that's a very busy time of year. Mm-hmm. And then, believe it or not, the summertime for us, our busiest time of the year is May through August.
Really?
Because I market a lot. We call it Central Boca Raton, Delray Beach, Florida. So it's maybe 3 or 4 miles off the ocean in all of the family communities. And historically, that's a big market for us because traditionally people move when the kids are getting out of school and they want to get them into a new house before school starts, late summer.
Got it.
Our schools start, like the 3rd week of August, normally.
Yeah.
So we kind of have, the dead zone for us, frankly, is the holidays. Thanksgiving to New Year's, it's
Sure.
dead.
Sure.
But pretty much the other, call it 9-10 months is pretty strong.
You mentioned the schools. I'm interested to see how the people are responding and what's happening with schools. Are they, I'm assuming they're all been closed, right? Just like up here?
Yeah. They're all closed. It's all been virtual learning. They think they're going to open normally late summer. That hasn't been determined yet. It might start out virtual, and then maybe after, we see if there's going to be a flu season or not, they may then go back in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of up in the air.
Have they called it, Chuck? Have they called it for the rest of this year? Is it no back to school? It's done for this season, right?
Yeah, they did that pretty early on.
Huh.
So, but the schools down here, I don't think they're as good as most of the schools up there because I'm familiar with the Boston schools, and generally even the suburbs are excellent schools.
Yeah.
Down here, traditionally they're a little weaker, but they've really beefed up their game as far as online learning.
Yeah.
And they seem to have it down. The big issue is the parents just trying to be teachers. That's a tough one.
It's tough. I can attest. I have my wife and I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And I think if we had one of those or even 2 of those, we could maybe accomplish a decent, productive day. But when you have 3, and she's carrying the load because, I've had to really scoot off from time to time as much as I can because there's no income coming in, so I got to go hustle. And she's, I get a lot of messages and texts, and there's a lot of discussion about homeschooling and like how difficult it is. And I've done a lot with them. Like this morning I had my son and he was doing work, but it depends on the day. It depends on the week. I mean, I can't blame these kids for being bored,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I was supposed to be in Michigan today because my son was graduating University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and it's kind of sad. He worked really hard and doesn't have the ability to celebrate it. So
yeah,
it's just a new normal. My kids are older. I've got he's 21. My oldest is 24. She lives in New York.
Hmm.
We got her out of there just in time, and my little one is going to be a junior at the University of Wisconsin. So um, I feel for you. I don't know that I'd be able to handle three little ones like you have.
Well, not to mention now they're talking about probably the summer programs, the camps are not going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're talking about whether the fall school will even resume. It probably won't resume as we know it. It will be maybe a couple of days virtual, maybe 2 or 3, vice versa. Some in school, some out. They wanted smaller groups and recess and classes, and so it's a long road.
Yeah, what's interesting for me in the Boston market, because as I told you when we first started, I usually get up there every 6 to 8 weeks, like for a long weekend.
Yeah,
And I was noticing the market, the last time I was up was January, and the market had shifted a little bit from a really strong seller's market to
hmm,
still a seller's market, but the days on market seem to be a little bit longer.
yeah.
Do you see, to the extent that you can predict it, do you see it shifting to more of a buyer's market when this new normal takes place?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen over the past few years, um, the springs have been robust, and I'm talking about from a seller's perspective. And then the falls, you see a little retreat, and you see it falling back towards the buyer side. And I think there's been somewhat of a minor correctionary thing happening for a few years leading up to this, anyways. Um, and I think it probably will persist. The only thing that really is keeping it from really going to all the buyers is the inventory is still anemic. It's still low.
Yeah, same
And
here.
I don't really know the answer as to why it's low. I'm not sure. That might be above my pay grade. I mean, there's a lot of theories, but we've seen a lot of properties hit the market over the past few weeks. I mean, a lot of them have been withdrawn, but a lot have come on as well. So I don't know what to predict. I think probably more of the same. Probably a little edging towards the buyers as far as leverage over the next year or so. Being in an election year too, it's people usually a little trepidatious going into the spring, summer, fall, leading up to November. This, I don't know what additional things will happen with this kind of a situation like the virus that we're going through now.
You mentioned that there have been some withdrawing of listings. Has that been because sellers have, gotten spooked a little bit, don't want anybody in their house, or are you suggesting that?
I think it's all of the above. Luckily we didn't really have any public listings, maybe one that we had coming into this whole crisis. And I think those that did have listings, sellers and listing agents that had them on there, probably the mindset was all of the above. We don't really want strangers in the house. Obviously, there's an uncertainty. We're going to be ticking away. These days on market are going to climb and climb because no one's really doing too much. We're pretty much on a pause, just as you would guess. And and also, the agents too. There has been some pushback. Agents in the first few weeks of this, we weren't sure what was going to happen. Like, should we be out selling real estate? Should we be pushing that, or should we be taking a stand that we're not going to do it? And who's going to lead that charge? Is it one company, two companies? Is it the whole, industry? Real estate in Massachusetts is still considered essential and has been through this whole thing, similar to you. So we can get out there and show stuff, but we also have to be cognizant of the client, make sure everybody's following the right protocols, because we don't want to be setting examples to doing things the wrong way. So it's been tricky. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of different theories. Have you guys been on a lot of Compass calls, Zoom calls and kind of weekly check-ins with all your colleagues and other agents and things?
Quite a bit. So the answer is yes. We probably 2 or 3 times a week. You could do it every day if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So we have separate Zoom meetings with our respective marketing managers to talk about marketing issues, what we can do to stay in front of our clients, that kind of thing. And then we'll have I wouldn't say it's a weekly sales meeting, but, we've had a few sales meetings where, Robert Rifkin actually joined the call, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I think we're as a company, my background, I told you, I've been in it about 21 years. I started with basically Coldwell Banker. I owned a couple of Keller Williams franchises, which I sold in 2012. And then I started my own boutique luxury real estate company called Boca Luxury Realty. And then Compass approached me almost a year ago and, offered me some things that I, as a small agency, couldn't offer my clients. So it became a win-win. So back to your point about, what have we been doing? The technology that we have right now, Compass, is a huge competitive advantage.
Huge.
I know that other companies don't even have the wherewithal to have people creating new marketing templates during this time, specifically related to the virus. I mean, it's obviously we didn't know this was coming, but if I knew this was coming, I would have joined Compass a year and a half ago.
Yep.
So we're going to come out of it as a group stronger.
Yeah, I think I was watching one of Robert Refkin's videos yesterday or the day before when he was talking about, all the trends that we already knew were in the pipeline are just accelerated in stuff like when things like this happen, instead of the mom and pop bookstores, the Amazon type home delivery, technology basically underscoring all the things that we need to do. And I agree. I think coming out of this, a lot of people will realize, wow, they're lucky to be at Compass and lucky to be agents tapping into some of this technology and the ability to communicate and set up marketing very quickly. I think the speed is the biggest thing, because right now I think I have in a given day, I probably have 4 or 5 hours that I can dedicate. And then the rest of it, I've got to manage the kids and get some homeschooling, and there's just less time. So if the efficiency factor alone is huge.
Yeah, I've found that this has kind of been a blessing. I actually have more office time than I normally would. So I've kind of put it into the infrastructure of my business. I just hired an SEO company, which I've been kind of putting off for forever.
Yep.
And really beefing up my social media presence. And so I think whenever this normalcy comes back, those that have invested in their business during this off time, we're going to reap the benefits of it. I remember, as I said earlier, the foreclosure crisis 15 years ago. One of the blessings of that, if that's the right word, is we lost probably 20% of the realtors.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
It wasn't easy anymore. And I think it's going to be a very similar shakeout in our industry.
Absolutely, which I welcome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's down here, I took the test up there. So they have a reciprocal with Florida, so I didn't have to go through the school. I went to the state exam. But down here, it's fairly simple. You take a test, you get a license.
Yeah, a low barrier to entry.
Oh, it's bad.
So
so hopefully it'll be nice to see if every 1 or 2 deals a year that we would lose to Aunt Mary that just got a real estate license, maybe we get back again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be even more important to have a pro working for you in the coming months and years. You mentioned that you were in an area in Boca that is very family oriented. Do you also do second home type real estate sales?
Yeah, I do. I'm kind of a sales animal, so there's not much I'll turn down from rentals to, I've got listings from 100,000 to 12 million.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. I'll do anything because they're all pretty similar. Obviously different price points. You have a different marketing budget, but you're doing the same basic things for whether it's a 300,000 or a $3 million listing, in my opinion.
There was a CNBC interview that Robert did yesterday, the day before, and he was giving out some stats about the searches that are happening at compass.com. Basically the long and short of it, if you didn't see it, was that second homes are going to see a tremendous amount of interest, because I think people are realizing life is short, and they want to enjoy it. And so I bet you're going to see quite a bit of, I bet your phone's going to start ringing even more for some of those second homes.
Yeah, we've gotten a ton of calls from New York, New Jersey, but they're all looking to rent for a couple of months. It's those
Sure.
kind of buyers that are, I don't know. I'm not going to say I disagree with Robert because he knows a lot more than I do, but um, my biggest concern about the market is consumer sentiment. Generally speaking, if people feel good about themselves, about the economy, about their wallet, then our business is good.
Hmm.
My concern is that everyone that's got laid off or furloughed or lost their job, all of those people aren't coming back. And all of those people aren't worth as much as they were. And I see the second home market as a market for people that, I don't want to say have disposable income, but
Extra, yeah.
have a nest egg that they can put into real estate. They may be a little skittish about doing that. I hope I'm wrong, because
Yeah.
this is a big second home market.
Yeah.
So who knows?
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
you know, I've sold a couple of places on Marlborough Street because A, I have a place there, but B, because I'm familiar with it. Um, so, but I can't service it. So if I had someone call me, in my building and say, I want to list my home, I'm not going to list it because
Sure.
I'd be doing them a disservice. So I'm definitely looking for
Referral.
people to partner with up there. So I'm glad to have met you guys.
Yeah, that we would love that. And likewise, as you know, there's a lot of people, like you said, that like to be in South Florida and are transitioning down there. So for us, it's great to have someone we can trust and say, hey, call Chuck. He's going to take good care of you.
Yeah, my job with referrals is to make whoever is referring me the business look good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think taking care of the client is a no-brainer. I mean, that's um, first and foremost, of course, and they'll get a high level of service. But my job is to have that referral go back to you and say, hey, that guy knew what he was doing. He really helped us out.
Yep.
He made sure we didn't make a wrong move, whatever it is. I mean, my business right now is probably too much referral. I'm probably like 70% referral, partly
Yep.
because I've been in it so long.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to build my prospecting up. And that's why I've kind of signed on with an SEO company. I need my website to generate more leads than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And things like this, if we can, get it out there, is only going to help.
Yeah.